Hello, my friends. I am here with the hop Little Scraps Big Impact, making embellishments. It's a hop where we use our scraps to make embellishments. It comes at the end of each month, so this is for June 30th, and our theme is red, white, and blue. So with the red, white, and blue theme, I immediately thought of the 4th of July, and I cut out some uh, things on my Cricut. This hop, before I get into what I'm making here, is brought to you by Ginger from Ginger's Corners, and down below you will find a link of the playlist for all that are participating in this hop and making embellishments, and you will see that each of us makes a different embellishment with what we have and the scraps we have. So I was thinking about the 4th of July and about the upcoming holiday that's coming up, and that it's the 250th year of our country. And I thought, well, okay, I will make a title and I will make a couple of embellishments. So the first thing that I did is I cut all of these out on my Cricut, and then I took vintage photo distress ink and I inked all around the edges of all these pieces, because that takes a lot of time, and of course it gets all over your fingers, and I just wanted to show you how to put the embellishment together and talk a little bit about what I'm making. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this little cute little dog together, and he's going to be dressed up for the 4th of July. And on the Cricut you usually have a background part and then you have a top part, and so I cut these in two different colors of brown, and I am just going to put my glue down. I prefer Nouveau glue. I think everyone kind of has their preference. This is the wet glue that I use, and it works best in my climate. I never have any trouble with it. Oh, except maybe in the winter, sometimes when it's really cold in the house. I might have to warm it up with my hands for a few minutes. That is true. I forget about that because right now we're in summer here, and our summer has been a little bit strange. So all I'm doing is I'm lining up the edges and I'm putting it down, and I'm kind of making sure that it's aligned pretty well, because all I'm supposed to see of that whole background was, and I don't like to see any of my glue, so there's a little bit of glue there in the mouth area, so I'm going to take it off. And I like to also go on the back and kind of, I don't know, burnish it, make sure it's sealed down really tightly. And so there is my little dog, and he is going to be dressed up for the 4th of July. So he is going to have a hat and a little sash. And the little sash, let's see, it had this little blue piece that goes right on top of here. Let me make sure I'm in the best part of the frame. And it goes on top of there, and then it goes on him. So our summer has been strange. I am in the Finger Lakes area of New York, sort of near Rochester, New York. And it has been going from colder for the month of June, I should say, like in the 70s during the day, and down, I'm just gonna glue this down here a little bit above where that was. There's usually with the Cricut, any of you have worked with it, there's a little line that kind of shows you where the embellishment should be. I'm just going to make sure that that excess glue is picked up, because even though it dries clear, you still can see it, and I prefer not to see it, so I usually take it off. And there we have the little sash that he's going to wear. So our weather has been going. I'm just going to re-ink the edge there and make sure that it's got a distinction. My little dauber is going to need to be changed. So it is like down in the 50s at night and the 70s during the day. And then the next few days, it is going to be up in the high 90s. And so there's none of that, you know, like nice low 80s or mid 80s. It just is bouncing from one to the other this year, which is kind of different for us here in the Finger Lakes area. And so I personally prefer the 70s, but most people who enjoy summer do not. I don't like to be hot. I can be cold. I will keep my thermostat in very low temperatures, like 64 during the day in the house. And so I just lined that up with the curve of the back, and he's got kind of like a little decorative sash or blanket on him. And he also will have a top hat. And so this is the hat, and it had cut a little teeny piece here. Sometimes you get the tiniest of pieces with the Cricut. It cut this little tiny piece here that you will place here. It kind of lines up with the edges, and there is kind of a little slit or mark there that shows you. But I was thinking, because this big hat that we're going to put together has the yellow stars, I might want to have little yellow stars, because it cut out, and it's very tiny, it cut out little stars. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll make sure that you see it later. So that is kind of it. Now the 4th of July, I have a brother who was born on the 4th of July. So for us, that meant celebrating my brother Brian's birthday. And I'm just gonna put this little piece of gold yellow paper behind the red, and I'm going to cut off the excess. And so my brother Brian, he's a year younger than me. We celebrated his birthday, and a lot of times as kids we had those little swizzle sticks, the little sparklers, that's what they're called. Okay, got all my little extra gold pieces going every which way. We had little sparklers, and you know, sometimes there's a few times that we were camping on my brother's birthday. Sorry, I was pulling the extra gold pieces off from the paper. So I pulled this out of view. Now, because I have trimmed that off, I want to make sure that I don't have any gold showing, and I'm just going to ink the edges again to make sure that, you know, the gold's not really showing except through the stars. And so we have that little piece. And so firecrackers, of course, were not safe, so we didn't have any of those. And we would sometimes go camping, and camping for us, I don't know what camping was for you growing up, or if you did camping, let me know. But camping for us was in the wilderness. We would go next to the river, and it would be, see, now there's his little top hat, and hopefully that's in view. I'm getting used to this new camera setup, and I'm just gonna place it on put a little glue on this portion of the hat that overlaps the little doggy's head. And we would go camping in the wilderness alongside the river, and so I'm just overlapping it a little bit alongside the river. We had a tent, but because I am one of 9, it would not fit my entire family. There, now we have our little dog, and isn't he adorable? But one more thing I want to do for him, I want to give him a little more of a, whoops, that went flying. I okay, I have I have these little embellishments, and I'll get back to my story of camping. I wanted to give him a little bit of an eye, and I picked up one of these with my tweezers, and it went flying. Just flew across the table where I'm working at. And so there we go. I'm gonna clean off my excess glue. I got a little glue happy there. So excuse my fingers for a second. And there we have it. And I will make sure that I focus in and hold them so you really can see them at the end. So there's my little happy 4th of July dog, and he's one of my embellishments. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to make a top hat. So on this I have a red piece that goes over this white. So we would camp alongside the river with a tent, and as I said, I'm a very big family, so not everybody would fit in the tent. And I remember some of us would sleep out under the stars in our sleeping bags. If it was raining, it meant the car. And I believe we had a station wagon at that time. So I'm just going to line up the edges of this and try to make sure that I have a good lineup, and then I will really smush it down. The back sometimes doesn't line up, but I freehand cut the white because I made a mistake when I cut my white, and either that or there was a mistake in the program, and I had put everything away, and I just didn't want to pull my Cricut back out to recut something that I could very simply cut myself freehand. So we would be camping under the stars or in the tent, and camping was alongside the river. There were no bathrooms. There was, you went off in the woods with your roll of toilet paper and found a spot. Sometimes there was, you grab a leaf. And of course we learned the difference between poison ivy and poison oak and a true leaf. Leaves of 3, let them be. How many of you know that saying? Leaves of 3, let them be. So this has a red and white, and then it has a band of yellow so that the yellow stars show through the blue band. So I'm going to put some glue on the back of this blue piece and glue it up real tight. So, yep. And where did we get a shower? Because yes, we are bathed in the river. Yes, we would get water from the river and a basin, and we would wash up. And we brought water with us for drinking, and that was our kind of camping. One time in my whole life, I remember my family rented a pop-up camper. Now this is a funny, I'm just inking the edges so that gold does not show through, because I don't really want the gold to show. I only want it to show through those stars. So we rented a pop-up camper and we went camping down in the Adirondacks. And that was very, very special for us because, like I said, our camping was really roughing it. And we went to a park that actually had showers, and there was a lake that you swam in. But I remember that our camper was at the little pop-up camper, and not all of us fit in the pop-up camper, by the way. But I remember my mom and my stepdad and probably my brother Mark, who was probably closer to a baby, probably might have been in the little camper, and I know my sister Tracy and I were sharing the little bunk. And of course we were not used to a pop-up camper. This was a luxury. and we were in a campsite next to a little teeny trickle of water. I don't even think we could call it a creek, but that's what we'll call it. And Tracy and I were sleeping, and one minute she was there right next to me, and the next minute she was gone. And I called for my mom, and I said, Tracy's gone. And we go running outside, and of course the pop-up camper, and we didn't know. And there we have the top hat. And next I will do the title. And with the title, okay, these little extra stars that I'm going to be putting on my title, I have some very small blue and red ones. The blue ones came from from this top hat, so I will waste not. And the red ones came from the dog's little hat. So we did not realize that a pop-up camper, and I cut a stitched circle with my dies. The rest was cut on my Cricut. The pop-up camper, and this is going to say 4th of July. Yeah, the wall's not solid. So what happened is Tracy had turned over in bed. She's just a year older than me. She had turned over in the little bed area and had fallen out the side, and her pajamas, and had fallen in that little trickle of water, that creek. Oh my goodness. And that was the only time we ever rented a pop-up. So as we got older, I remember camping at a campsite, and that camping entailed, usually it was with a picnic that was held by the place that my stepfather worked, which was called Agway. And I guess there was probably a little bit more money then, so once a year. The other times we would go along the river, but once a year we would go to the park. I think it was Sampson State Park up here in New York, which is very close to our home. We would go to the park and camp for probably a night or two right around the time of the picnic. So this is going to say 4th of July. And I have inked all the edges. Cut this out on my Cricut, the title. And when we went camping in the Sampson State Park, that was kind of a luxury because you had showers and you had bathrooms. We never camped in a cabin. Always it was the tent. And so those were my adventures in camping. The other thing that I remember about that trip to the Adirondacks is that there was a mountain that, so in my family they call them the 4 older kids and then the 3 younger kids. But really, there is only, all of us were born a year or less apart. And between my brother Mike and my sister Tracy, there was 2 years. That was the only time there was ever a gap. I'm just taking my stars and spacing them out, but I see that I didn't want that one there. See, live camera, running my mouth. I want this one here because I have 2 different size of stars. I have this one, which is a little bit bigger, and I wanted to space out. So I had a bigger star, the slightly smaller star, and a bigger star. Yeah. So where was I with my story? We were next to, in the Adirondacks, they were older kids. Like I said, there's only a 2-year gap between them. Now let's see, do I want it here or do I want it over here? I think it'd be crowded if I placed it here. I think I kind of want it like right here to space out the 3 big stars. So the 4 older kids, which really weren't much older because the first 7 of us were born within 8 years, okay? And the 4 older kids, we're gonna call them, they got to go climb the mountain with my mom. And so I think it was some friends that we were camping with down in the Adirondacks. And Tracy, Brian, and I, which were considered the younger ones, though like I said, there's not much age difference, were left at the campsite, and there was a very fast moving river. And I remember we were playing outside, and one of the people that we were with, one of their children pushed my brother into the river, and of course he was going very fastly out of sight. So we went and got the adult and screamed for the adult, and they rescued him. But boy, that was something very traumatic. But everything was safe. Everybody was safe, and we all survived our childhood. But those are some of my adventures in camping, and a lot of that revolves around, like I said, sometimes it was the 4th of July. And now I have made my embellishments for you. And this is the set we made. I will zoom in on them, but first I need to stand up so that I can actually see and reach to zoom in. And see if I need to zoom in more. I can do that a little bit, I think. Not sure how. So let's see. There. Maybe I should just hold them up. Yeah, I think I should just hold them up so that you could see them better, but I could see where I am. So this is my title, The 4th of July. I kind of like that. That came out really nice. And I just saved the little stars from the cutout. This is my embellishment, so that will be a title for a page. This is my embellishment, the top hat, and this is my cute little dog. And you can see that I gave him, there we go, I gave him a nice little eye. And I also made a bigger set. So this was, I'll show you my bigger set. So let's kind of push those out of the way. And well, you can see they were slightly bigger. This was cut on a 3-inch in the Cricut, and this was cut on a 2.5. You know, you wouldn't think it would be that much bigger, but it really is. And there's the little bigger dog and the little dog, because you really have to practice putting this together in order to get it done. And then I will show you, I'll just put my hats together and my dogs together. Here is the titles. Actually, the titles were the same exact dimension. And then they had with this Cricut banner, but I did not like it. Okay, so I cut 2 of them out. And it was supposed to be, if you ever use the Cricut, usually when you make something, they have the, you know, the same little dimensions, and you kind of keep it to that dimension. Well, the banner, it just came with 2 pieces, and I could, but as scrapbookers we know, and I kept thinking, why do I not like this? Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pendants. And I was thinking, well, I could have made it alternating red, white, and blue, and I would have liked that. And I can kind of cut it and overlap it, and I might do that. I might cut out some white ones and alternate it red, white, and blue and put some together. But I'm sure that I have other ways of making pendants. So now tell me about your camping experiences. Or did you not go camping? Or did you go glamping? I don't even know if I could go glamping these days. It sounds interesting. It sounds fun, but yeah, not so much. So there you go. There is my 4th of July red, white, and blue, because the theme was red, white, and blue. There's my embellishments for little scraps, big impact. And so this is a hop with Ginger's Corner. The link is down below. Go see what everyone else has made this month. And thank you, all my subscribers, for coming to watch this and my live video and hear my chit chat about camping and the 4th of July. And I will see you at the end of July. I hope you're having a good summer. And for my friends below the equator, for Mel down in Tasmania, she's in winter. I wish you a happy winter. Okay, bye, my friends.